some of my fights lasted 7 minutes. My longest was 2 hours, 47 minutes. No breaks, no rounds, no nothing. Not even a sip of water. Every family wants to be the top family, right? Then the rest of the families just keeping up with the Joneses. They want to exterminate us. We were a nuisance to them, because we lived our own way of life. And to this day, we still want to live our own way of life. Years ago, it used to settle an argument where two fellas go out and have a fight, and that was it. The shake hands was finished. Now, if two fellas have a fight, one loses, he'll train for 2 years and come back and try to beat him again. Nowadays, it's never over. When the traveller starts to learn how to walk in his nappies, he wants to pair box. If you win a fight, they want to beat you. If you lose a fight,
you want to beat them.
My advice is accept your loss if you lose, accept your win if you win, and move on with your lives. Everyone's got problems. Speak about it. Just because we're travelling men or the alpha, and we hide it. And I always say, to save one life is brilliant. To save two lives is priceless. Terry, to be honest with you, it's a reputation I didn't want. If you've got a pair of balls, good heart, a bit of boxing skill, go for it.
Welcome back to the Criminal Connection podcast, and this episode is proudly brought to you by Betovo. Welcome back to the Criminal Connection podcast. My name's Terry Stone, aka the Podfather. Today we've got a legend from the travelling community. He is the only undefeated bare-knuckle boxing champion ever. So please put your hands together for Mr. James Quinn's in the house. Woo!
Thank you very much, Terry.
James, it's so good to meet you, buddy.
Thank you for having me over, mate. Appreciate that.
Amazing.
It's my pleasure.
No, honestly, I was saying to you earlier, and for the viewers and listeners that haven't seen any bare knuckle fights from back in the day. One of the fights that I got given was Amy McGinley
and Dan Rooney
and Dan the Man Rooney, and it was an old VHS tape. I remember watching it, and I was just thinking, this is brutal. It was like just two guys going at it for. What was it, 40 minutes or 4
It was
hours?
a good, it was over half an hour. Do you know what it was? Way back in the day, that was probably, from my knowledge, that was the first fight that I seen documented on a VHS.
Yeah.
Now, if anyone doesn't know what a VHS is, it's about that size. We all know that.
It's big
old,
tape.
big old CD or something, But but prior to that, you'd hear about, fights here and fights there, but you'd always want to be there or see them. But then everyone wanted to watch this fight. And I think from that inspired a lot of young travelling kids, to be the next one of them.
Right. And for you, James, you grew up, what part of Ireland was you?
Dundalk, Mullingar and Dublin. It's mainly the Midlands and Dublin.
Right, okay. But you was born in Ireland?
I was, yes.
Right, amazing. So you was born and raised, and what was it like living in Ireland, at that time?
Living in Ireland in the early 70s and late 70s was survival for the travelling community.
Right.
Right now we are recognised as an ethnic clan and all of that. But back in the day, we had no status. We had no welcome, and no one wanted us there. We moved from camp to camp, roadside to roadside, working on farms, working on farmlands, stuff like that for the farmers. It was basically survival in the 70s, but you know what? I wouldn't change for the world. Right. It was probably the greatest childhood that I remember. But what I mean by that is I wouldn't have any other childhood, only that one that I was right about. The greatest mum and dad in the world, greatest family around me. We had the freedom of the land, and we enjoyed and loved it.
And do you have any brothers and sisters as well?
I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters.
Wow. So that was a big family.
Well, a big family, yeah. 3 brothers, 3 sisters and 3 dogs. We loved it.
Right. And what dogs did you have?
We had a greyhound, we had a terrier, and we had a cross.
Right, wow.
The terrier was used for flushing the rabbits out, and the greyhound was there to catch them. As I said, it was survival. We enjoyed it. It was a good life, but it was a hard life. It was a hard life growing up. And not that I remember going, my mum told me when I was first born, for the first 4 years, I lived in a barrel top wagon. And from there on, we moved into caravans and houses up until now.
Right. And growing up, back then, like you said, that you it was tough growing up. Was that because was there problems obviously in the travelling community, or was it mainly with the Irish that weren't travellers?
It was. I think it was the education system and the authorities at the time. Right. Didn't want travellers around them, and to be honest with you, to this day they don't want us around. They still don't want us because we're not a big group of people. I think in Ireland there's 28 to 32,000 travellers. You know, not all of them are bad. You know, there's good and bad in every community. But back in the day when we went to school, say, right, we went to school for religion. We went to school for our Holy Communion or confirmation, because when we were in school, we were like put into special classes where you were given a deck of cards from 9 till 3, and 6 or 7 of the travellers were in one room playing cards for the day. We weren't allowed to learn anything. Now that system, thank God, has changed.
Right.
That's changed because we got, you know, within the travelling community in Ireland now, you've got police officers, you've got solicitors, you've got doctors, you've got nurses. The education system has come on great, but back in the day, it was terrible for everybody.
What do you think it was? They didn't want to get educate, or that they were just discriminating?
They want to exterminate us, and that's a hard word to use within our own community by our own people. But they would want us to exterminate it because we were a nuisance to them, you know,
Right.
because we lived our own way of life, and to this day we still want to live our own way of life, and we're getting it harder because, you know, in Ireland there's a shortage, and in the UK as well, there's a shortage of travelling sites, you know, where travellers want to live on. They want to try and get the traveller out of the road, off the road into bricks and mortar, let's say, housing, where travellers don't want to be in there. You know, the same as settled people doesn't want to be on a traveller site.
Right.
You know, you can't put a bull in a china shop. He's not belonging to it. Right. You know, we want to be out where our families are beside us, not on the road, but within a community where we're surrounded by each other and support each other.
I mean, that's one thing that I've noticed. I mean, I've got loads of friends. You know, Paddy Doty, I know, Dougie Joyce, I know, Alfie Best, I know. You know, I've got a wide selection of friends from Gypsy and travelling communities, and what I've always loved is the family, the sticking together.
There's a great family connection there. You know, it's what we're known for, and it's what we do best is look after our families. Right. You know, our families come first before ourselves. We're there to provide, we're there to look after, and we're there to love and protect.
Yeah, and when would you say, you know, you first started fighting? Was your dad a fighting man?
No, my dad was a quiet guy. My dad was a quiet guy, but you know, he had a few fights. But he never lost any fights, but he wasn't never known as a fighter. Right. You know, he was a provider. Right. That's what he was. God rest him. But you know, from an early age, especially in the schools, I was a victim of bullying. Right, really, really bad. But you know, my dad said, "I've got to do something about this." You know, so my dad took me to a boxing club. And when he took me to a boxing club, I learned for a year or two what I needed to do. Like, I couldn't play football. I couldn't play nothing. What I just found enjoyable was the boxing. So I liked it. I'd done it. And I went away and I met those bullies after that, and I had a word with them. Right. And I wasn't being bullied by them all. I wasn't bullied after that. But, you know, not that I held it in or revenge or anything. Right. I just think that, you know, some bullies need to be spoken to. Yeah. And, you know, especially if it's a continuous thing with the same bullies. Yeah. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like police. I think, you know, male and female, young and old get bullied in all societies, not just the travelling community. I think, you know, you only lose when you lie down and not fight back. You know, regardless if you lose 20 times a day, stand up to them. They'll stop then.
Yeah. I mean, every story that I've ever heard about any bullies, and you know, this isn't advice, but it works, is, you know, you have to just hit them really hard.
As simple as that. But I actually think bullies themselves were victims of bullying themselves, and now they want to just be above that level, and they just want to bully other people. I've seen that with a number of people. I'm not saying all bullies were victims, right, but I'm saying I've seen it where bullies were victims and become bullies.
Right. I think a lot of it's kind of weird, like with social media now as well. It's actually encouraged people to set up fake profiles, to torment people online, to bully them, to, you know, call them names. And,
it's so easy, now.
Yeah.
It's so easy, like within, you know, I do, I'll give you an example of fake pages that you're talking about. I've done it's okay to talk about a documentary I've done.
Yeah, of course.
I've done this documentary called Mind Your Head. It's about bullies and awareness and mental health combined. We followed this guy for a number of years from the streets. We take him from the streets, travelling lad. We take him from the streets, and we got him housed. We got him into rehab. We get them help with a job. We help them with work. It's been a proper success story, right? And to see where what I'm doing within that community, people look at, especially fake pages are inboxing me on a daily basis saying that I am letting the outsiders into our community, by documenting this. I'm not. My reason to do this documentary is because I've lost too many friends. I've lost too many. I've lost some second and third generation families. I know a lot of people that's been affected. Everybody's been affected by suicide, in every community. And someone within our community has got to speak up. And that's because looking at the stats within our community, we're looking at like 21% of every 100 is within the travel community. Wow. So if you've got 100 people that dies between England and Ireland tomorrow within the travel community, 20 to 21% of them is. So that's a big number. That's a massive number.
It's not a number that people are publicising, and I'm glad that you made that documentary.
They don't. It's really, really big, and more than 80% of that is young men. Young men, and from 16 to 35, 40, some older. So someone needs to speak up in our community about this. And I always say, to save one life is brilliant. To save two lives is priceless. So the reason, hence for this documentary, is getting it out there, getting the word out there, and letting people know that there's help out there. Just don't go to your doctors and leave it at that. Get yourself assessed. Get yourself into treatment. Get yourself into rehab. Whatever needs to be done, do it. Your family's there to speak to. Your colleagues are there. Your wives, your daughters, your sons. Don't be embarrassed to speak to anyone. If you're not feeling the best, speak up. It's okay not to be okay.
Right. And I think that's important because, that's actually a shocking statistic.
It's
21%.
Bad. It's very, very bad. It's very bad.
And there's people that I've, been friends with that have been affected by people that are friends, and you always sort of think, why?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's a big question.
And I mean, through doing this documentary, have you got an answer for that, James?
No, I don't, because I've had this really, really good friend of mine. I'll tell you a really short story, called Jarlath O'Hora. He was a Mayo man from west of Ireland, 32 years old, 33 years old, 6-week-old baby girl, baby boy, 3-year-old baby girl. Him and the wife had a dispute. He went on a drinking spree and he hung himself, and that hurt me really bad. And that one person himself inspired me, because I spoke to him the day before he died, and he said, I'll see you tomorrow, but he never answered the phone to me. He could have reached out. He used to reach out a lot of other stuff, and he never reached out. Then at his funeral, I got to know his brother Gary really well. From there on, me and Gary became friends for a year. And then Gary bid me good night one night, and he said, James, I'm going to Jarlath. And he killed himself. Wow. Two young brothers, one in late 20s and one 30. So things like that hurt people, and that inspired me to do this documentary. It inspired me to speak about mental health. Us travelling men think, people think that we ain't got any problems. We're strong. We're good. But, everyone's got problems. Speak about it. Just because we're travelling men, we're the alpha, and we hide it. It's kind of taboo. We don't want people looking on us that we're not well or whatever. Speak up and talk to people is my advice.
I think that was one of the big problems, when I was growing up in the 70s. My mum used to say to me and my dad, man up. You know what I mean?
Man up, yes.
Don't be a baby, and I think one of the things that I think answers that question, why people would do it, is because they don't feel like there's a way out.
It's $1 million question, isn't it?
There's no way out, and they go, that's the only way. And sometimes if somebody watching this is thinking about that, or someone watches your documentary,
10 seconds later, I'm sure, I've spoke to some people, and 10 seconds later, they'd never do it again. Right. They'd never think about doing it again. So what was it that triggered that? What was so bad that they couldn't speak up and talk to someone that's their auntie, their cousin, their uncle, their nephew, their doctor, their side, anybody? Just speak out and give yourself that chance to live, because it's not just you that's dying. You're killing your family around you. You're killing your sons, daughters, mothers, fathers. Everyone will suffer for the rest of their lives because of one action.
But it's like your friend who committed suicide. his wife will blame herself for that because she
did.
I had the argument with him. It's my fault.
She did, bless her. Yeah,
but it could have been.
It could have been anything.
Multiple.
It could have been many reasons, multiple reasons, as you're saying. But it could have been any reason. But yeah, she blamed herself for many months and years. It's 6-7 years now, and I don't know I don't know whatever happened after the kids are, but she moved back to Ireland, and that's, it's a sad situation, and that's happening every day.
But I think that's probably one of the messages that the documentary and also this podcast, for anybody that's listening or watching, if you're feeling like there's no way out, if you're feeling you should always pick the phone up and talk to somebody.
Talk to a stranger.
Yeah.
Pick the phone up and annoy someone on the phone. Do anything. Piss them off. Just speak out. It's my advice anyway.
Yeah. No, it's good advice, James. That's good advice. And going back to obviously when you was growing up, and like you said that you went to the boxing club. When was the point where you just thought, actually, I don't want to wear these gloves anymore?
That didn't happen for a long time. What it was, I've had, I think it was 11 amateur fights in Ireland at the time. I fought for Dublin. I fought done the county Dublin, the leagues, the usual things. And I lost the first fight, and I think I lost my last fight on the old gloves. But it wasn't many years after that when, when my sister was getting married at a wedding, at her wedding, so to say, and a dispute broke out, and I had an argument with one of the other guests at the wedding. We had a fight. I won it. 3 days later, he asked me to fight again. I beat him again, and then from that spiraled into a career that I never wanted.
Right.
I really didn't want it because I seen where my father, literally cried when I was coming back from the fights or going out to them. He didn't want me doing it.
Right.
And I wasn't just hurting my wife and kids. My parents suffered. They were so worried, and he was a very proud man, and he loved all his family, he loved me, but he was the type of man that just didn't want me doing it, but knew I had to do it. Knew I had to do it because of this feuding things that was going on. Thank God this feuding now is completely finished. Everybody that was involved in that feud is speaking, talking, and everyone's, happy enough.
Because that's sort of an ongoing thing that you always see these sort of call-out videos, and then you hear about this family's arguing with this family, and they're going to kill them, and they're going to kill them. And...
Do you know what? I think it's just, let's just talk about, in general, call-outs, where you say, I want 6 months to fight, I want 4 months to fight you down 10,000, 5,000. I think it's gone more of a tradition with travel. I don't think that ever happened really until social media, till they got the opportunity to send WhatsApps in seconds. Where back in my day, you send a VHS, a call out in a VHS, you won't get a response for 2 weeks. So it could have been over by then. It could have been like feud could be done.
Right.
You won't get a response because you have to send that tape away. By the time the person gets it a week later, by the time you get a response, it's another week. Now you're WhatsApp and you're there and then in seconds with each other.
So when you started doing this bare knuckle stuff, like you said, it started off. I
started off at a wedding, and then it just catapulted from there. Whereas his cousin, the first guy that I beat, his cousin wanted to fight me, and then I accepted that challenge and I beat him, and then it spiraled in a way that people just wanted to beat me.
Well, I suppose that's the thing. Once you've got a reputation, people will have it.
Yeah, it's a reputation, mate. To be honest with you, it's a reputation I didn't want. I didn't want it. It's helped me. It's helped me in my life. It's got me where I am today. I do a lot with mental health, as I say, suicide awareness. I'm also working with NHS central beds in Bedfordshire, hypertension, blood pressure, because that's just one little thing I want to talk about as well. I'm working with the NHS on the blood pressure project, where travelling community don't realise, and they're uneducated, as so is some of the settled community, the side effects from blood pressure. Now, I suffer from blood pressure, and I'm embarrassed to say that. Right. I'm on medication, but I'm happy, I'm doing well. But people don't understand that it causes strokes, heart attacks, dementia in later years. The other side effects of not looking after yourself within the hypertension and blood pressure. So my advice is to everyone on that as well, is get out there and get yourself checked.
I don't just throw names around unless it's worth your attention. I want to say a big shout out to our sponsor, the Sky's the Limit competitions. You've never seen draws quite like this. They've just launched what they're calling the King of the Road Draw. You could walk away with the BMW M3 X-Drive. That's a 2023 model in showroom condition with all the bells and whistles. And just to add a little bit of extra sauce, you also get a Rolex Submariner, reference number 114060 with a box and papers included. And if for whatever reason the car with a watch isn't your thing, there's a huge cash alternative up for grabs. The tickets are just £50, or you can grab 3 tickets for £120. And with a strict cap at 1,000 entries, your odds of winning are seriously decent. You want better odds? Use my exclusive code, TerryStone25, at the checkout. Buy 5 tickets and get your 6th one free on me. Make sure you head over to the Sky's the Limit competitions. The link is below. Get involved, and who knows, that draw could have your name on it. Don't just dream it, drive it, win it, live it. And with the bare knuckle fighting, then obviously it was in its infancy. As in, you know, now it's sort of, you know, pay-per-view, isn't it?
but bare knuckle boxing, you know, it's first and foremost, travellers. Where you got a certain community, you want to ride a bike and they want to kick a football, yeah? When the traveller starts to learn how to walk in his nappies, he wants a pair of boxing gloves. Right? Because it's in them, it's genetic. That's my honest opinion. They just want to be a fighting man. From, you know, we get our little girls now doing boxing training because of Katie Taylor and that. You know, they all love it, right? But little travelling boys just want to be a boxer, right? And it starts from there. And it's great education. First, it's great for the head. It's great for the mental health. Yeah. It's also great that, you know your kid, when he goes for a little teenage disco, or he goes wherever he's going, he's able to look after himself, as long as he's not a bully. You know, it's all down to it's all down to be who you are, being a proud travelling man, and to be able to fight if you need it to fight. And that's your sons, your nephews, and all that. They're all the same. Just travelling men just want to box. Right. And when it comes to bare knuckle boxing, many years ago when it was in its infancy, you know, it's one of the oldest sports in the world. But it's that going back to Dan Rooney and Aidan McGilney. That fight actually, I think, ignited a flame that has continued to this day.
Yeah, because I think before that, I mean, in the 1800s they were doing it. But it wasn't. There was no. I think when you actually see that video, and obviously, I wasn't in that community, so when I got that video and I watched it, I was like, wow, is this what's going on? Yeah, people just love to see a good blood sport. I love a good blood sport, Derry. How'd you get tickets?
Yeah, exactly. I love a good blood. And that's another thing. When we were used to do the fighting, I used to have a close fight. So you'd have two cameramen, 2 referees, and that'd be it. Win, lose, or draw, shake hands, whatever, right? But people would always say, can I come to the fight? Can I be a cameraman? Can I be a referee? Just to get there. Right. And that's where it is to this day. It's never changed. Travelling men just love looking at the old bare knuckle fighting. Some of them love competing in it, and some of them wouldn't compete in it for £1 million because they can't fight.
Right. Well, I remember seeing that, and then there was a sort of underground circuit. I mean, when you were doing your fights, what was it similar to boxing in that you get matchmakers?
Yeah, it was similar to boxing, but weight difference, sometimes difference in weights is phenomenal. You know, I fought guys heavier than me, I fought guys a lot lighter than me.
So what weight was you boxing at, James?
I was about 16 stone, 16.
Right, so you're heavyweight.
Yeah, oh yeah. Right. But, some of my fights lasted 7 minutes. My longest was 2 hours, 47 minutes, with no breaks, no rounds, no nothing. Not even a sip of water. And we fought in August, I think it was August or early September, which was one of the hottest days of the year. And it was 2 hours, 47 minutes, and that was a kind of a boring fight, but it was the duration and the length of it that made it special. And that was for, I think it was £60,000 each or something like that. You know, probably, again, should never have happened. Them fights should never have happened, but when it did, the training for bare knuckle fights and the training for ring boxing, to me, is completely different. Right, because when you're training for ring boxing, if you look at the professional fighters right now, some of them are out of steam in 4 rounds, 5 rounds. Where did the training go for the last 6, 7 months for this fight? You know, because my belief is when I used to train anyway, and I tell the lads the same, is you're not training for 3 rounds, you're not training for 3 minutes a round, you're training for till that man says he's beaten. So you train a 1 minute round. Then you stop. Then you do the bags for 7 minutes. Then you do the bags for 12 minutes, and you do it for 4 minutes, you're training your brain and your body not to know when that 3-minute bell is. Because it's not going to come at 3 minutes in the street fighting. So sometimes we do, it'll be light sparring, but we do it for 20 minutes, 25 minutes. We do the bags for continuously a half hour. So the body is not getting that 3 minute where when you're coming into the last 20 seconds of a round in a ring boxing, you know that bell is coming any second. So you act different to it. But in bare knuckle, it's completely different. You don't know when that bell is coming. So you've got to train yourself, mind and body for that.
So you did that by mixing up the duration of the thing.
You've got
you
to
do a lot of road work as well.
I couldn't run to save my life. I couldn't run to save my life. I remember when my brother Paddy Curley used to take me running, and I hated it. And what I used to do, he used to take me out 6 miles outside where I used to live, Dundalk, and he'd wait 3 or 4 days a week. I'd do this. He'd wait back where the pickup point was 6 miles, and I just wait 15, 20 minutes. I'd sit down, and that time you could tumble lift in the road, and I'd get 2 bottles of water for one over me and sweating, and then I'd run the last half mile. And he says, "You're beating your time every time, you know." But I was getting a lift quicker, wasn't I? So that's the way it worked out. But no, the time of jogging and running, I never liked. I just like to do gym work, you know, pads, bags, whatever needed to be done in the gym, but do it more intense than the actual ring boxing style of things.
And the conditioning for your hands and your body, what did you do for that?
Do you know what?
Did you actually spar bare knuckle as well?
I would do the bags bare knuckle. No, I'd always use very light gloves in the sparring, but I would, on the bags and on the pads, I would do the bare knuckle, yeah. I use bio oil. It used to soften my skin.
What's it called?
Bio oil.
Oh, actually,
bio oil?
Yeah.
One guy told me in the gym years ago, I had an injury in this one here. That's why it doesn't go down.
Right.
An injury in that one, and he said use bio oil after the first fight. And after that, I found the bio oil was really good for the movement of the hands and conditioning them. So I don't know what's in bio oil, but it worked for me.
Yeah.
That's what I used to use anyway.
And as you're going through fighting people, back then, was there like a championship?
No. It was, but within the feuding families, I suppose. Whereas, you know, and that's no disrespect to anyone, but it's just that, as I say, you know, I don't want to say too much about this because, thank God, that argument and that feuding is done and dusted. Brilliant. And, you know, respect to all the fighters, the winners and losers on both sides, because we've had many of my family has won fights, but many of them has lost fights. The same as the other sides, you know. But in general, it's just, if you win a fight, they want to beat you. If you lose a fight,
you want to beat them.
You're okay. Yeah, exactly. If you lose a fight, you want to come back and win it. And I've seen that happen a few times.
And at that time, was non-travellers allowed to fight as well? Or was it
no. It was just a travelling community that was involved in their personal civil arguments.
Got it.
Now I've seen a burst of set community doing the bare knuckle now, and it's great. It's great to see them do it, and you know they all. I get inboxed a million times about Knuckle. You know, they've seen Knuckle years ago. There were kids growing up and all that, but it's great to see them. You know, I know people that's come out of prison and they've taken up bare knuckle boxing, and they've stabilised their life. It's like a little job to them. They're training every day, they're working out, and they're getting good fights, and they're getting good purchase for it. You know, so
that fight you mentioned earlier, James, where you both got 60,000 each. Was that win or lose, or was it
winner take all, sir?
Oh, right, okay.
Winner take all.
So if you won, you get 120.
Yeah, it's family. I wouldn't put the money in personally on my own, but my family would, and his family would, and that type of thing. But what it was,
I mean, that was a lot of money back then.
Yeah, but to me, it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the money. It was about winning for my family. Whereas some fights, you start off, you negotiate, and you say, right, $5,000 a man. But then I tried to price myself out of the fight. I didn't want to fight. Yeah, I tried to price myself out of it. So I'd say 10, then they'd say 15, and I'd say 20. No, let's do it 20. I'm thinking they wouldn't do it, you know. But it happens, and that's the way it works out. But you know, there's been good days and bad days, and just good to see that it's all peace now.
Yeah. And what was when in your career doing the bare knuckle, James? What was your hardest fight? Would you say?
Within the bare knuckle, my hardest fight now is getting the word out there for mental health, and that's being honest, and that's on a serious note. That's my hardest fight right now because I feel that the travelling community is not listening. Right? In the barekunckle, the hardest fight would have been probably the long fight I've had because of the length of it. You know, not that I took any punishment or that my hands took a bit of a beating, but it was the duration of the 2 hours 47 minutes that I wasn't thinking was going to last that long. I was thinking maybe an hour. You know, I trained myself for an hour, but then I had that hour went and that half an hour and a half went. And if you look at the documentary, you'll see where one of my family is saying, you know, it's going on 40 minutes now, 50 minutes on, it's still going good. And now it's an hour and a half, and the intensity is there. And then you see everyone worried about, you know, the outcome on both sides. How's it going to go? It's been 2 hours now, this needs to stop. And then 2 hours, 47 minutes, it stopped. And that was it, you know.
And was that just, did they just declare that a draw? Or was
No. He just put his hand down and said, I'm beat. That was it.
I bet you was like happy.
Of course I was happy. I was very happy.
Go on for any longer.
I was very happy because, you know, I'm only human the same as him.
Right.
I'm only human the same as him, and, you know, I bleed the same as he bleeds, and we were, you know, it was just the one that wanted it the most on that day.
And with your mindset, James, going into that fight,
when you're going into a fight, you have to learn yourself, and it's not thing to say is to hate them, hate that person for that, and you don't hate them because, you know, God tells us not to hate anybody, but we don't. But for that mindset, if you're not going in there as a soft boy with a soft mentality and thinking, you know, I'll just do what I need to do, or going in there hoping for a draw and maybe, you know, accepting a draw after 15, 20 minutes, what's the purpose of fighting? You know, if someone wants to fight you, go out and try and win it.
So it's all about having that winning mindset and never giving up.
If you go in there without that winning mindset, if you go in there thinking that, you know, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to get at least a draw now or whatever, don't do it. That's my advice, don't do it. Go in there, go for the win.
And out of your fights, James, were you mainly like a KO man? So you knock them out, or
I won all my fights. Not saying I'm not saying I was the best. I mean, I was just better than them on the day. That's all it was.
But winning all your fights obviously meant that you had a bit of a talent.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
and what would you say over the years? I mean, you obviously got injuries, but what was your sort of catalogue of injuries, and what was probably the worst that you'd had?
The hands.
Right.
The hands, you know. I was lucky enough in facial. You know, I had a couple of black eyes and that, but the hands was, you see, your hands are not protected. Right. You know, your hands are not protected. If you're hitting a big fat skull, you know, you're gonna, it's bone on bone, skin on skin. You're gonna hurt yourself, you know. You are gonna hurt yourself, but that's the reality of it, is that it's not a sport for everyone. Right. Bare-knuckle boxing is a tough man sport. And, you know, by going in there and having that fight and losing doesn't mean you're a bad man. It just means you weren't the best on the day. Right. Go away, train, work hard, and come back.
Yeah. And how many fights, can you remember how many bare-knuckle fights you actually had over your career? The main ones was 5. Right. Okay. The main ones, I've had a few other ones off record, right. Yeah, but the main ones was 5. They were the official fights.
They were the official, yeah, exactly. They were official fights. You know, as I said, the first one from 7 minutes to the last one to 2 hours 47 minutes. So a lot of difference in that.
And when did you actually sort of decide to call it a day, James, on that? Was it after that 2 hour 47?
It was after that one, which was, it was 2002, I think the last one was. And I just decided, you know, I've had challenges since that. And I've never challenged anyone. Personally, I've never challenged, but I've had challenges after that, but it never materialised. We could never come to agreements on location, place, dates, times, or whatever, but it never worked out. So thank God now, you know, almost 58 years old, and right. I was lucky in life in that type of thing.
So when you stopped officially fighting, what did you sort of focus on then? Did you actually train any other fighters, or?
Yeah, I do. I did and I do. But what I'd like to say is, right, that personally, I would like to see the young travelling men, you know, is if they're going to fight, but try and avoid it as much as they can, because it brings stress on their families. It brings, years ago, it used to settle an argument where 2 fellas go out and have a fight, and that was it. The shake hands was finished. But now, if 2 fellas have a fight, one loses, he'll train for 2 years and come back and try to beat him again. So nowadays it's never over. Right. So my advice is accept your loss if you lose, accept your win if you win, and move on with your lives.
And with like the feuds between different families, and it doesn't have to be your family, James, but it's gone on quite for probably since the dawn of time, and it's also been in this country as well, where you've got different travelling families feuding. Is it just because it's a pride thing, and if people...
Families are very proud people. Families are very proud people, and they don't like being second best to another family if they're involved in a feud or an argument. Right. So therefore, they're trying to come out on top, be the alpha family, and that's where the kids get dragged in. The young kids, where they train up the young teenagers and 20-something-year-olds to go out and fight, and then that's where it starts, not finishes. Right. It's hard to explain to you, Terry, in words what I'm trying to say, but I just think that the days are different. The days of when I was fighting, now that it's done and dusted, whereas the days now where they want to just continue fighting, right, and get that name for themselves, and they want to be the next best thing, they want to be the next Dan Rooney or whatever. Right. That's what they want to be.
And right now, like when you look at the bare knuckle fighters, do you still follow the sport? Do you still?
I follow the sport. I follow the sport more now in the ring with the organisations that's out there. I'm friendly with all of the organisations. I know them all, who set them up and all that. And to be honest, I follow them now, whereas I was glad to see, because I campaigned to get it off the streets. I campaigned to get it into rings where there's risk assessments, doctors, medics, time limits, all of that, because what I went through, I don't want anyone else going through. So I campaigned when I set up Knuckle Promotions way back in the day to do all that. And yes, I think it's at a stage now where it's only going to blow up and get a lot bigger.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because have you seen the other thing they're doing, the power slap?
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? I wouldn't get involved in that.
Slap. Yeah.
No, thanks.
I think you'd be good at that, though, James.
Yeah, maybe good at it, but not taking it. No, I go.
Right.
No, I say that. I think Dana White now sponsors that.
Yeah.
I think that's a silly old sport. I think it's bad for the brain as well, isn't it?
Well,
shakes that head up.
I mean, it looked. I mean, when I first saw it, I thought it was a wind up. You know, when someone sent it to me, and then it was like, no, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Dana White's behind it, and I was like, wow. But I
think it's actually banned in a few countries now.
Right. There is a Brit. There's a guy called Darren Godfrey Jr. from Bristol, and he was a bare knuckle fighter, and he.
I know him. Yes, I know him. Yeah.
And he's the only one that Dana signed for whatever reason. And when they do a coin toss. Right, ladies and gents, let's talk about something that we all need after a long day. Relaxation, R&R. And that's where our sponsor, Insignia, comes in. These guys are offering the full works. I'm talking indoor saunas, body dryers. They've got outdoor saunas. Turn your garden into a luxury retreat. They've also got steam showers and steam rooms. And I'm talking about spa-level steam therapy right in your own home. They've also got ice baths for the brave and the bold. And they've got loads more, from aromatherapy to chromotherapy and all the latest wellness tech. Bottom line, if you want luxury, recovery and total relaxation, you only need to know one name, and that's Insignia. The team have given the Criminal Connection podcast crew your very own special code. Head over to insigniashowers.com or click on the link below and use the code Terry200, where you can receive £200 off any sauna. The Podfather's on the Insignia wellness journey, so don't be a mug and join me too. Take care of your body, clear your mind, and make it Insignia. They do a coin toss, and he said every fucking one I've lost, and he said I have to stand there and get slapped around the face. But he said every time I slap him, I knock him out. He's ranked number 3 in the world.
He's very, very good. He was a great boxer as well.
Yeah,
he was very, very good at boxing. And he was a very controversial, that man, but he's a good guy. Yeah. He's a good guy, yeah. He's controversial. Yeah.
And out of the sort of bare knuckle fighters now, have you got some that you really
yeah, there's a guy, he fights for BKFC, a company run by a friend of mine, David Feldman. Michael Terrell. Right. Amazing fighter.
Oh, Mick Terrell. I've not seen him fight, but I've seen him on.
Yeah, Mick Terrell. I introduced Mick Terrell to bare knuckle boxing. I gave him his first fight. He won it. And from then on, he's only been strength on strength on strength. And he's an amazing man, lovely guy, good family man, and he's a brilliant Superman boxer.
Right. And
he's probably one of my favourites. Yeah, I'd be a fan of his now, to be honest with you.
Right. And any other weights, or is it just the heavyweights?
No, I just concentrate on heavyweight. No, there's great lads. There is great lads. Right from featherweight, lightweight, middleweight, and all of that. But I think heavyweights, it's like the old boxing years ago, Muhammad Ali and Ken Norton, George Foreman, and them. It's the heavyweights you look at, isn't it?
Right. Do you think you'd have enjoyed fighting now, like in a ring with some sort of rules and?
I would have done it. Yeah, I would have done it back in the day. I would have done it. Yeah, but it's easy for me to say that now because I'm old. I'm an older man. Right. But yeah, I would have tried it. Yeah, I think I would have. Yeah. No, I would have tried it because it's a sport, not because it was a family feud.
Right. And you wrote a book as well, didn't you, James?
Yeah, done really well. That book done really well with HarperCollins called Knuckle, not a biography. Interesting. It's completely different than a documentary. It gives a lot more information about the family life, the family life and the trials and tribulations of growing up as who I was. It was a good documentary, a good book. Yeah. And it done really well on it, yeah. I'm very happy with it.
But Knuckle was a documentary as well, wasn't
Knuckle was a documentary, and then we got the book deal from the documentary itself.
So anybody watching or listening to this podcast, they can get your documentary or your book.
The documentary is actually free.
Right, okay.
On YouTube.
Yeah.
And the book is £5 or £6, £7 on eBay and on Amazon.
Right.
So, but it's a good read, it's a good read, and it's completely different. Anyone wants to know anything else, it's not in the documentary, it's definitely in the book.
Right, brilliant. And looking forward now, James, what are you sort of focusing on now? Because
focusing on this, I'm very interested in doing. I'm not no filmmaker, far from it, but I got the bug of doing this thing with Mind Your Head, my mental health documentary, and now I want to do another few things highlighting our community. One of them being I want to do something on autism within the traveling kids within the traveling community, because it's a sore note for me even speaking about that, because some travelers don't want me speaking about it, Right. And this is where the ignorance kicks in, right? Where with autism 20 years ago, it wasn't, and this is a fact, it wasn't within the traveling community. Right. Nowadays, I don't know a family that hasn't got a child with autism. Right. And I'd like to know the answers for that. What's the reason? What's caused it? What's the background to it? And all that. And this is what I'm playing in my mind to get a documentary out there on that one. I'm doing research on it first and finding out why, where, and how it's come into the traveling. It's always been there, obviously, but it's tenfold now.
It's the same with everything. Like everybody now seems to have, whether it's autism or they've got ADHD or they've got an allergy.
Where was that in the 70s and 80s?
There wasn't any.
But this is what I'm asking. Mad. Where was the ADHD and where was the autism within any community, but especially the traveling community? It wasn't there. Right. It wasn't there when we were growing up. Where did it come from?
I also wonder whether people are being misdiagnosed because. When I was a kid, I was a pain in the fucking arse, and I think most kids are.
Accept it. I accept that, but I just wonder. It always bothered me to say, how is there so many now being diagnosed? When it wasn't there previous to this. But then there again, people now can identify themselves as a TV they want. They can,
what do you identify as, James?
Me, an arsehole, I suppose.
Because the world has got a bit mad, isn't it?
Stupid, man.
Pronouns and all this sort of stuff.
Silly. Everyone to their own. Yeah, everyone to their own. As I say to anyone's listening or watching, be yourself. That's it. Be yourself. But be human.
In the travelling community, have they adopted the identifying as cats and dogs and stuff, or they just
I identify a lot of them as dogs and cats, but no, I don't. Right. But all joking aside, because in the traveling community is starting to change. Yeah, they're starting to accept a lot of transgender and gay and stuff like that. Right. There's a lot where that wasn't in. Probably always was there, but wasn't. People wouldn't come out and say what they were, who they were. But nowadays, if you are, they're saying it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because it always interests me because, I think it's actually funny because, like you said, when you grew up, there was this thing about travellers, like you said, and they were discriminated against, just like, you know, the blacks and the Indians and anybody that was non-British. People and people always said to me, "Oh, I can't believe how people were back then." But the thing is, I'll put it down to what you said earlier. It's ignorance. If nobody actually says to you, you know, these people are the same as us. They might be different. They might have different. They might speak different to us, but we're all essentially the same. So you've got to treat everybody with respect.
You've got to treat them with respect.
But people never told our parents that. So our parents never told us that, and there was that ignorance. And I think what I loved, you know, when I was 16, I went to the boxing club, right? Because I wanted to learn to fight. And I went to Palmer Style, which was a travellers boxing club.
Okay.
And George Smith was there. There was a guy called Les Stevens. And when I walked in there, they said, "Are you lost?" And I was like, no, I want to
not sure.
I want to learn to fight. And they said, "Well, you know, you're a gorger." And I was like, "Yeah." And they went, yeah, this isn't for you. And I said, "Well, I want to fucking join." And he was like, "All right, join." But then they accepted me, right?
Yeah.
And then what I loved, as
you don't judge someone until you get to know them.
yeah,
You know, that's in our community as well. I said to the second community, is give a traveller a chance. You know, we're not all the people that we're made out to be. And just give us that break. And if you don't like us, walk on.
But the thing is, like you said, there's bad in everything. And I think probably what happened was a couple of people knocked on someone's door and said, "Oh, you got a leak on the roof or whatever, or do your drive."
That's
Run
exactly.
off with the money, and then all of a sudden, like they're all the same.
Then traveller's a traveller.
There's no differentiation.
1,000,000%. I agree.
But what I've loved seeing is obviously my experience at 16, and I'm 54 now, so I've been sort of 38 years. I've been, you know, sort of around the travelling community.
Yeah.
And I've always enjoyed the company. I've always enjoyed going to the weddings and just being friendly, you know, and being accepted. And I've always never had a bad word to say against any of them. But then what I loved was then all of a sudden they started doing these reality shows. So then you started having, you know,
Big Fat Gypsy Wedding.
My Gypsy Wedding. And what was, and they were so popular because it was like the public were fascinated.
Because they wanted to see what was in that life. They wanted to get in the door. And I think Big Fat Gypsy Wedding done a turnover on the travelling community. I think they portrayed the young women different than really are.
Right.
You know, I also don't think that, you know, it is this, you've heard of the grabbing situations where boys grabs the girls and all that. Right. Me, I don't agree with that. Never would agree with that. I think that's not right. It doesn't happen in every family, in a very, very small minority within the travelling community that happens in, but we've been portrayed by Big Fat Gypsy Wedding as everyone does it.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like that.
I think what I liked about these various shows was people were fascinated, like, wow, you know,
it was good TV.
Yeah, but it's like you said, it's not always factually correct, and you know, when you're watching reality, it's all about conflict. It's all about making it bigger than it is. So, like you said, you know, you wouldn't go up to someone and just start, you know, but for the TV,
you do it.
You know, oh look at that's.
Yeah, but that's given the wrong portrayal of certain young lads.
Yeah,
you know, so like a lot of young travelling boys now don't agree with it, but they're asked, "You do the gravel as well," you know.
Right. So in, and I'm interested, you know,
carry on.
And I'm sure our viewers and listeners will be as well. But you know, you're a young travelling boy, and you decide that you want to go out on a date. Do the travellers pretty much just keep it within the communities, or do they sometimes go up or marry non-travellers?
You know what? Again, that's all changing. Way back in the day, 70s and 80s and early 90s, it was just traveller. You know, from extended families or families.
Did they have arranged marriages or not?
Yeah, there was arranged marriages. But nowadays, young travelling men are branching out to the second community girls. Right. And the travelling girls, some of the travelling girls, only a small minority, are now, you know, settling down and accepting that travelling life is not for them. Right. And they want to marry a gorgeous, say. Right. So it's starting to change, yeah.
And are the families accepting for that? Do they kind of...
You got no choice, have you, really? Like, you know, if your daughter or your son wants to marry someone, do you stand in the way? Right. You know, if you stand in the way of happiness and you make them, or you decide that they're going to marry someone else, of a traveller, and that marriage don't work out because she or he loved someone else at the time, and that marriage breaks down, you're at fault of that, aren't you? So you try not to stand in the way.
And you said obviously that grabbing stuff is bollocks, right?
Bullshit, yeah.
It probably happens occasionally, but
It
it's
happens occasionally, but not as
a
widespread as Big Fat Gypsy when he says no. It's not.
And when you have, is there like an etiquette? Do you literally ask them out, or do you have to say to the dad, "I want to take your daughter out"? Is there sort of an unofficial rule book?
There's an unofficial rule book for the kids. The kids will nowadays. It's obviously with social media. They connect to social media anyway. If they don't know them personally, if they don't know each other personally, they connect to the social media, and from there, then they get to know each other, and then they'll probably have a little couple of meetups and chats. If you like, so then they go to a father or mother.
Right. And I've noticed in London they do these meetups where they all meet outside Harrods, or they all.
Do you know? I've seen, and now I believe someone's telling me that the kids are all going in 2 weeks down to Blue Waters at some shop, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think there's 400 kids meeting down there. It's like the time in Manchester with the police situation.
Right.
They're all meeting down there. And when I was young, that never happened. Right. Now it's just, I think it's just a nice meetup for the kids, as long as they can look after themselves.
And one thing I wanted to ask you, when you was doing this bare-knuckle fighting, obviously it was illegal. Did you ever have any problems with the police? Or...
Yeah, the police would try and stop it at all occasions. Right. But, sometimes the police in Ireland would know to let it happen because it would stop a bigger thing. Right. Whereas if they stopped that fight, they know the feuding would continue. Right. If they let that fight happen, that would put a plaster on it for months, type thing. So sometimes, yes, the police would knew it was illegal, but would let it happen for the greater good.
Right. And you mentioned earlier when we was talking before we obviously started the interview, that you was managing.
Little man.
Yeah.
He's a funny little character, that fella. He's a lovely little fella. He's to me, there isn't a little guy like him in the world. I done his corner in the last fight in Stoke-on-Trent. He beat a man in seconds. He fights like a giant. Wow. I'm telling you, when you'll meet him someday, he fights like a giant, and he's got the personality of Goliath. Yeah. And he's got the charisma. He's got everything going for him. The guy should be in movies.
What made him get into fighting then? Because
I do not know. I do not know.
It's an odd choice just to literally go. Do you know what I want to?
Yeah, he just I think it all started in prison. He was with some travelling guys in prison, right? And it all started there. And
what did he go to prison for?
Do you know what? That's a good question. I never asked him on that because none of my business to ask him that. I never really did ask him.
Right.
But I was.
How tall is he?
He ain't tall. He's
I
mean that in a nice way.
Yeah.
Oh, he's not. He's small. He's small. He's small. But for me, he can fight.
Right.
He can fight like a giant. It's unbelievable the strength that kid's got. Wow. Unbelievable. Wow. I'm working with my other friend. We're co-managing him, and we're trying to get him fights, but we just can't get him any fights. Right. There's no one in the world as a midget or dwarf or whatever you want to call it, bless him. There's no one there. No one wants to take him on. So if there's anyone out there listening that wants to fight Little Man, get in touch with us, fights on.
But currently, he's the world dwarf champion.
And he will be for a long time because there's no one wants to fight him.
Is he doing bare-knuckle as well?
It's bare-knuckle he does.
Oh, sorry, I thought he actually...
No, bare-knuckle. He's an animal. He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Wow. I want to get him on the show just because I want to be able to meet a world bare-knuckle dwarf boxing champion.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant.
Unbelievable.
He's brilliant. He's good. He's witty. He's everything going from there. So you'll be glad to see him. You'll be glad to get him on your podcast.
Amazing. Are you got any other people you're managing, James?
I've got about 25 fighters at the moment. I'm setting up a new promotion company with a partner of mine in the US in New Jersey. And it's called bkwars.tv. We're waiting for funding to come through for a reality TV show on bare-knuckle boxing, where we've got some number of fighters from the UK in a house like Big Brother, a number of fighters in the US, and we've got 2 celebrity trainers, and we'll eliminate them down to a pay-per-view fight night at the very end of 8 weeks. So it's going to be good. But again, they're waiting for the funding. We've got some people interested in it, and see where it goes.
Yeah, that sounds something that I definitely would watch.
Oh, it'd be brilliant to watch. Yeah, brilliant to watch.
So what else are you working on, James?
I'm working with a very good friend of mine. I help him out, and he's very good at. He does competitions on Facebook, legal competitions, sky's the limit competitions, where he raffles cars, jeeps, trailers, caravans, Rolexes, brilliant, all above board, and he's an amazing guy, and you should look him out. Sky's the Limit competitions is brilliant.
We should get him sponsoring the podcast. I'm sure a load of our viewers and listeners would be up for buying some tickets.
I would like to see that. I would like to see that.
So Tyson Fury was a world champion boxer. He obviously took the title, Gypsy King. And in the Gypsy and the traveling community, there is that is the title that everybody wants, right?
I'm a very good fan, a very big fan, big fan of Tyson Fury and for what he's done for his career, but also what he's done for the traveling community. He's highlighted that travelers can achieve their dreams. Like you got Isaac Lowe, you got Dennis McCann, you got young Paddy Donovan, you got a lot of boxers coming up following him, whereas he was an inspiration, like the same as other street fighters were inspiration for young kids. I think Tyson Fury himself is a role model for a lot of the travelling kids right now to get into actually professional boxing, off the streets, out away from with the gloves, and get in there and be who they want to be. Because the man's had his ups, his downs, his highs, his lows. He's had his dilemmas, but he's overcome everything to be that world champion that he is, and that's great for the travelling community.
Yeah. Did you see the At Home with the Furies show? They did.
I watched it myself, and the wife watched it. Brilliant. She loves it. Yeah. She loves it. Brilliant program. I thought it was very interesting. Again, some people don't like travellers letting cameras into their homes. I thought with Tyson Fury, well portrayed, really well done. Well, his dad, John Fury, a gentleman. He's very outspoken, but he is John Fury. Right. He is a nice lad.
Big John Fury.
Big John Fury. I speak to him on the phone a few times there, and he's actually given me a little clip to put on my Mind Your Head documentary on mental health. Amazing. Encouraging me to keep going and encouraging the lads to continue their treatment and that. Very well, very good of them. Furies, you know what? Boxing wouldn't be boxing those days without the Furies.
Right. I mean, Peter's a good mate of mine, and he's obviously been on.
Yeah, I think Peter's son Huey's coming back, isn't he? He's fought the other week, yeah.
Doing really well.
Yeah, I met Huey a few times again. And I think Huey, Huey now needs to step up and be the man that he is, because I think Huey is a lot better than people think he is. Yeah. I think Huey's actually a very good fighter. Well, he went to distance with Parker. Yeah. Well, so to do that, alone, that's brilliant. So I think well done to him, and well done to his reincarnation of his career.
I know, because I bumped into Huey, and we had a couple of nights out in Spain, and he actually said that he got, and that's why he sort of stepped out of the training, because he had long COVID.
He had health problems. Now that I'm glad to see him back. Huey, Tyson, a lot of them, they're good for boxing. They're good for they're just keeping the traveller life there out in the public eye, which needs to be in a good way. Yeah. Love them, I hate them. They're done good for boxing.
Yeah. And we've obviously got the billionaire Gypsy, Alfie Best. Have you met Alfie?
Alfie's a friend of mine, personal friend of mine. I know Alfie. I speak to Alfie on a weekly or monthly occasion. He's a really nice fella. Another success story for Gypsy man. There's a lot of millionaire Gypsy men out there, but to be a billionaire Gypsy man is something special. Yeah. And it only takes the best of it, and that's Alfie.
Right. And what I think's lovely, like you said, you got the Furies for boxing, you got Alfie for business.
Correct. There is a lot of travellers out there that's doing good for the communities and in the community in general in other departments, But social media don't show that and don't see that. There's a lot of, things going on where I know a lot of my friends do a lot of work for charity, do a lot of stuff to help the homeless, to do Christmas drives where to fill. Well, I was involved in one where we filled every food bank and every homeless shelter in Chelmsford to stop taking food. We'd done that much of a food drive where I would go to a food bank I would go to a shopping centre and I would fill the basket with, say, 100 quid of food, but I would nominate 3 of my family friends to do the same, and in turn they'd have to nominate 3, and they'd all have to do it. And within a couple of weeks you had 300 shopping trolleys full of food going into the food banks. And at one stage they just overwhelmed, they couldn't take it. But you don't see that on social media. Now, I've seen travellers do it with toys for Great Ormond Street and Temple Street Hospital in Dublin, where they fill the hospital with toys. generally like fill van loads and take them there for the kids. But that's not highlighted, you know. That's not highlighted. You just see where the guy he does a bad tarmac job, a bad roofing job. Okay, but it's not just travellers do that, you know. Every community will do that. But we're highlighted for the bad and not recognised for the good in our lives.
I mean that's that stuff with the food bank though. That should be publicised because
It should be publicised. It really should because
we're doing it now.
But hey, thank God. But you know what? I've got other friends there that you know in the winter months they go down twice every couple of weeks with jock socks, hats, scarves, sleeping bags, and a McDonald's meal for every homeless person they can find around King's Cross, and then they do it in all other towns and cities. It's never recognised because they don't want to be saying on a camera, "Oh, it's me. I'm giving this kid that. I'm giving this kid that." Right. They don't want that. But it's not nice in a situation where people know it's happening but don't want to not interested in it.
Right. And there was we've had Dougie Joyce on this podcast, and we've also
I know Dougie well,
and we've also had Paddy Doherty, and obviously they've had
they've got the differences. It's like every feud in tribal communities. Some feuds die away, some don't, and I don't know if those two boys are talking at the moment, but I don't think they are. But you know, hopefully it'll work itself out in time.
Do you think with the feuds, it's easier to solve them now, or do you think it's harder because they?
It's harder now because of social media. Because years ago you say something, and it's over and done with. It wasn't recorded or it wasn't documented. Nowadays you send a WhatsApp out, that's there forever. Right. People will hold it against you. You said about my mother, my sister, my brother, you know, you do the threats, you do that. Well, way back in the day, if you did say it, you couldn't, well, who said it, where did I say it, who told you? It's only hearsay. Now it's documented and so it's a lot harder to get out of that one. You're saying I didn't say it, when you fucking did, here, listen to this.
Right, right.
Simple, yeah.
And when you look at all the different sort of travelling families, is there sort of like a, you know, if would you say that there's someone in the pole position, you know, like that there's like a sort of top 10 or top 5 where this family's, you know, the top is regarded as being, you know,
every family wants to be the top family, right? Then the rest of the families just keeping up with the Joneses, right? You know, they want this, they want that for their kids. Well done to them. You know, I say, you know, fair play, get your kids what you can. If your mum and dad couldn't get a few years ago because of whatever, and you can afford it for your children, do it, you know? But don't do it and leave yourself out of pocket. You know, don't do it just because your neighbours are doing it down the street. Don't do it because he's got a nice car, your son's got a nice car. Right. Only do it if you can afford it. You know, your son will appreciate that in time.
Yeah. Are you friendly with the Brent Parker?
Yeah, I know them well. Yeah, very friendly with the boys, yeah.
Yeah, because I saw they were massive. There was a lot of stuff on social media where they were sort of having feuds and wars with people.
Yeah. But I think it's all quieting down again with them now. You know, I think that's all quieting down again. You know, a nice bunch of lads. I think there's 2 or 3 families involved there. And, you know, well-connected and well-respected people.
Yeah. No, I just watched it and I was just like, wow, because obviously you only see stuff on social media, but you don't actually know, you know, what's underneath it. You
don't know what's underneath, you know. Yeah. It's like doing a good roof for someone, as a man says, you know, bad roof. What's underneath, how you fix the roof underneath, if it's going to last. You don't know what's right or wrong till you're there.
We got connected, obviously, by a mutual friend, Gavin.
Gavin Spenskoff. Yeah. He's from Nottingham, but he lives in Ireland at the moment. A nice lad, I know him about. He helped me actually put on the very, very first licensed barekunckle fight in the UK in over 120 years.
Wow.
And he was involved directly with me on that one. Gavin's a nice lad. And well done to him. He's just set up a new company called Betovo Promotions, where he's put on his first fight night, and it was a success. So long may it last for him. And yeah, it was Gavin set us up.
So that fight, the first fight that got licensed, who was fighting on that?
Absolutely Saturday night guys from outside of Chippy. It was just to get him into the fight. Right. You know, there was no one, there was no professionals, and none of them, except one guy, one guy was very, very good, called Michael Ferry. He was from Newcastle. He's retired since that, but apart from the rest of them, wasn't great. But it was the thing of getting it on, and getting it recognised, and getting it out there to say that this is proper. Because when me and another friend of mine, a partner of mine at the time, Michael Blackett, wanted to do a show in Darlington, and the police put a stop to it. So we said, no, we're going to go ahead with it. The police said, go ahead with it, we're going to arrest you because it's illegal. I said, perfect, that suits me. So we went anyway, and we organised a fight night, and the police stopped it, and I was arrested for whatever, breach of the peace or something like that. And I was in court.
You just haven't hit anyone, yeah?
I was in court about it, and they said, you're enticing this. I'm enticing nothing, or whatever way the word of it. But I said, look, it's not illegal. And he said, my old solicitor said, well, it's not legal. We can't find it. When it's legal. And the prosecutor said, the judge, the magistrate asked the prosecutor, is it illegal? And he said, well, I can't find anything where it says it's illegal. Just that it stopped way back, because way back in 1889, when Jake Kilrain lost to John L. Sullivan, that was the last ever bare-knuckle fight with knuckles, recognised. But when I said to the judge, can I just, or your barrister, or your honour, whatever he was, I said, can I just say that if we're in Sainsbury's car park, yeah, and I said, there's guys over there, MMA gloves, guys with boxing gloves, and guys on knuckles over there, and they're all fighting. I said, which of them is illegal? He said, they're all illegal, because they're in a car park. I said, correct. But you put them all in a ring with risk assessment, medical attention, and everything done right. I says, there's a fight there with no gloves, there's a fight there with gloves and MMA gloves. So which of them is illegal then? And if they're all done right, none of them. So he let me go ahead and do my fight night the following week. The police didn't like it, but it done it. And from that on, we done our first night, and it carried on from there. And now it's worldwide. It's in almost every country in Eastern Europe, in Europe itself as well. It's in Australia, it's in USA, obviously bigger ones. It's all over the world now because of I think, realistically, it's being reincarnated from my documentary Knuckle, and the first fight I've done, and it's proven that bare-knuckle fighting is alive and well.
What's lovely for me, James, is that obviously you had your career doing it when it was deemed as being illegal, even though it wasn't. Obviously you did the book, you did the documentary, and like you said, that was the catalyst to literally set that flame.
It was. You know what? It was a dream of mine to see this happen, and now it's happened. And I've been out of it for a while now, the promoting side of it. But I think September I'm going to start again and do my next big one. I'll do a major fight night in September, trying to get each promoter has got their own champions. There's about in the UK alone, there's 7 or 8 different promoters, but they have 7 or 8 different world champions for their promoter. But you can't have 7 or 8 world champions.
You just need one, don't you?
We need one. So what I'm trying to do is take the best of the best from all the promoters and put them on a fight night on our card and say, right, who is the best? And then the winners from them can defend the future from all the other ones again. So it'll be a proper belt.
So it'd be a bit like that prize fighter thing that was done.
Exactly.
I don't know, was it Leon who did that? Was it Frank Wong, where they got all the fighters together and then they all fought each other and then it was one champion?
Frank won that. What I'm trying to do is get, exactly similar. What I'm trying to do is get all the smaller promoters and the bigger promoters to give me their champions, for my fight card, and the 2 main guys would fight for the titles, and then the next fight would be eliminated. So this second fight would fight the winner of the first fight in the next fight night. So they'll always be champions. They'll always be owned by and promoted by their own organisations, but there'll be one proper supreme champion from all the promoters. So he will be recognised as the main guy. So then we start a ranking system from that. That's where
I think that's a great idea. You could become the Dana White of the bare-knuckle.
You know what? That would be a challenge in itself. But I'd like to take that one on. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of the other things that have sort of spun out of this bare-knuckle boxing stuff. I've seen the hay bale stuff.
A good friend of mine from Spartan, BKB, Christian Roberts.
Yeah.
I'd like to mention his name, and also Stephen Hanks, another very good promoter out there. But Christian Roberts is doing the hay bales at the moment.
Right.
They're very small, inconvenient for the fighters, but when you're in there, you can't run. You cannot run.
For our viewers and listeners, could you explain in simple terms? It's just literally hay bales, isn't it?
It's just literally hay bales no bigger than 10 by 10s in feet, not meters, 10 by 10s. You're in there with the referee, and you've got to go for it because you've got over the height, so you fight. You don't box, you fight. Right. And fights don't last 3, 4, 5 minutes, and they're over.
And what's the Is there any rules?
The rules is the same as all boxing. It's just use hands, nothing else, hands. No breaks, no rounds, no nothing, hands. Right. Guy falls, you give him 10 or 15 seconds. Sometimes in some promotions, 10 seconds, other promoters is 20, but you give them that break and to get up the fight. But once they fall, a lot of them don't get back up.
I mean, but because when you're getting punched in the face.
Yeah, punch in the face,
it's not fun.
It's not nice, is it?
And there's another thing, that, again, so the hay bales, it's just sort of, it's like they've took the bare knuckle thing and they've just gone, actually, let's put them a bit closer together so they can't escape.
But as another company I know very well, I've worked with in the past, BYB Extreme, backyard brawling, and they use a triangle ring. Right? And that is completely with the guys that comes out of boxing and the guys that comes from the professional scene, and they go into that ring and it's alien to them. Like there's just 3 corners to the 4. It's an amazing design.
I've not seen that, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's really, really good. It's really good. A friend of mine designed the ring, Dada 5000. He fought Kimbo Slice in Kimbo's last fight.
Wow. He was a great fighter.
He was a brilliant old guy, yeah, brilliant, tough old nut.
He looked crazy, didn't he?
He looked mad.
He did.
You know, he wasn't a full bob.
Because he died, didn't he?
He died, yeah, a heart attack, I think he took, yeah. But he was an extremely tough, dangerous man.
Right.
You know, dangerous guy. But again, never the pleasure of meeting him, but seems a nice person, that's his soul.
R.I.P. Kimbo Slice. He was in my mate's movie, actually.
Kimbo was?
Yeah, Bloodsport. Blood Out. Sorry, Blood Out.
Never seen that one.
Yeah,
MMA, was it?
It had Michael J. White in it, and he was in it, Kimbo. And he actually met him, and he was a great guy. And
yeah, everyone that I spoke to that met him said he was different than we see him on the old TV. Yeah, he was a brutal man on them documentaries.
I mean, he was a big old unit as well, wasn't
he? He was, yeah. And he could hit.
And another thing that spun out of the bare knuckle fighting was the no rules. I don't know if you've seen any of that. But
there's another one there, yeah, no rules, where there's just anything goes. Yeah. And that don't last too long either. Yeah. That don't last. I think one of Gavin Svenskop's, our friend Gavin Svenskop's, one of his fighters is holding some sort of a title now.
Right.
King of the Mountains or something, and I don't know what it's called. He fights up in the mountains in Dublin, and he sends all challenges out to anyone who wants to come up and fight him. No rules, and he's had a few of them. Then he's won them. So
wow, because I know a friend of mine was participating in that, and he got beaten senseless and then put in a fucking pipe before he was dead. And I think the only problem with these no rules things is somebody is going to get killed.
Do you know what? In all sports, even be it bare knuckle boxing, right? It's all good till someone dies. Yeah, and thank God it hasn't happened yet, and please God it doesn't happen. But let's see what happens when the authorities, if that happens in bare knuckle. Yeah. But God forbid, I hope it doesn't. But, as I say, it's all good until someone gets hurt.
And James, one of the things I wanted to ask you, if somebody was thinking of going into bare knuckle or fighting, and they said, James, give me some advice, what advice would you give them?
Jesus, that's a good one. Look at me. As I say, if they're good enough, compete. But if you've got no boxing training, bare knuckle is not for you. You might be the big guy in the gym. You might be solid. You might look well. You might be, the pretty boy out there that wants to do boxing. But if you've got no experience, bare knuckle is not for you. If you've got a pair of balls, good heart, and a bit of boxing skill, go for it.
James, honestly, mate, it's been so good meeting you. Thank you so much for coming on. It was great hearing your stories.
Terry, thank you very much for having me, and it's been my pleasure to come meet you, mate, because I like watching the old movies. I think you're a brilliant actor, and keep up the good work, buddy.
Oh, thank you, James. And I'm really excited about seeing your movie. So when you have a screening,
I'll send you that. Actually, you know what? We've had a screening in Dublin International Film Festival, and it went really, really well down there. Now it's been touted out to the girl that worked with me to help me with it. She sent it over to a friend of yourselves who's actually looking at it at the moment to try and get it on one of the platforms.
Brilliant.
Again, it's an issue where a lot of travellers want to see it but don't want to see it because they want to see it because it's a traveller, directed, produced, and presented by myself, but they don't want to see it because of the subject. If that makes any sense. So it's kind of a love-hate documentary.
Okay. But that should cause a lot of controversy. So
And that's what we want. That's what we want.
All right, James. Well, thank you so much for coming
pleasure,
on,
Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Criminal Connection podcast. James Quinn, what an amazing guest. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you tell your friends all about the Criminal Connection podcast. We will see you next week. We've got another great guest, and we'll see you on the other side.